Hello everyone, hope you're all doing as well as possible. I decided I am finally ready to tell my coming out story for Pride Month this year. If you can't see the screen, I am wearing a white Frida Kahlo t-shirt. She was openly bi. I'm bi, and bi-erasure is a huge problem. And it's exactly why I didn't fully figure out I'm bi and come out to my family until I was 30, and I came out publicly on social media a year later when I was 31. At the time I recorded this video, I was 38. This video will contain mentions of homophobia, ableism, bullying, and Matthew Shepard's unaliving. So, like I said, I'm bi. I have only ever had relationships with men, but I have experienced romantic attraction to both men and women. And the fact that I've never had romantic relationships with women is actually part of the reason I stayed closeted for so long. I did not think that was okay. I thought you could only call yourself bi if you'd had relationships / partners of multiple genders. I didn't know that there are women out there who identify as bi who have only ever been with dudes, but apparently it is a thing and I'm not alone. Before I go on, a quick note about terminology. I use the term bisexual because I have only ever experienced attraction to cis males and cis females, mainly because I did not know anyone who identified as non-binary or trans until I was much older. Some people who have had romantic attraction or relationships with someone who was non-binary or gender non-conforming like to use the word pansexual, meaning many or multiple. My use of the word bi is not coming from a place of transphobia. I just want to make that clear. I just feel like it's the most accurate word for my orientation and my experience. To keep the censors off my back, I will say bi for the rest of this video because schmexual is a bit of a mouthful. So, my parents are plenty liberal and affirming, whatever words you want to use. Like I said before, I was not raised a fundamentalist. My dad in particular talked to me about this kind of stuff. So by the time I was in 5th grade, I did know what gay, straight, and lesbian meant. And if I was only attracted to girls, I wouldn't have been worried. But as I mentioned in my video Lost Girl in my backstory playlist, I honestly thought that my being attracted to boys and girls was an offshoot of whatever was wrong with my brain. I didn't have a formal autism diagnosis at that point, but at that time, the only words people were using were gay, straight, and lesbian. So I figured that being attracted to both boys and girls wasn't okay. I figured this was just another item on the long list of things that were wrong with me. Okay, trigger warning for Matthew Shepard's unaliving. So I found out about Matthew Shepard when this happened. I was only 10 and in 5th grade. As I mentioned in my video Lost Girl, I found out about what happened to him when I was looking through newspapers for some school project. And due to my hyperlexia, I could read and cognitively understand stuff that I wasn't always emotionally ready for. I mean, this stuff is tough at any age, but you know what I mean. So, if you're unfamiliar, Matthew Shepard was a gay college student living with HIV who was the victim of a brutal hate crime. His family chose to publish the crime scene photos, kind of like how Mamie Till Mobley chose an open casket for Emmett Till's funeral. They wanted the world to see the consequences of violence and extremism. Now, you have to understand, at this point, I was no stranger to bullying and unaliving threats. I was constantly getting threatening notes in my desk. And on one occasion, a jump rope tied into a noose. And that is even more horrific because it was right after a history unit on either slavery or anti-Semitism. I forget which. But the reason I'm sharing these details is because parents need to understand that bullying is abuse, regardless of why, whether it's because a kid is queer or disabled or whatever. If a teacher was doing this to me, it would have rightly been considered a crime. Teachers and parents, do effing better. Being gay struck me as more normal than being bi. But my 10-year-old brain reasoned that if you could still get unalived for being gay, there was no way in hell I was ever going to let anyone find out I was bi, on top of whatever else was wrong with my brain. As I got older, my bi identity seemed to get buried under all kinds of stuff. There was the explosive combination of autism, puberty, and undiagnosed PTSD from the bullying and a bunch of other stuff. Then I started going to church when I was 16. I've talked a lot about those parts of my story. And as said, I personally never had any kind of issue with people being queer, even after I started going to church. But since I'd never met anyone who identified as bi, it was getting pretty easy to ignore the subject altogether. And then after that came college, the heavier duty fundamentalism, the cultiverse, and all the other shit. And I got out in 2014, as I've said before. I started watching a lot of YouTube during my Lupron stint and the PT and the rehab exercises that came after that. And one of the YouTubers I discovered was an amazing woman named Jessica Kellgren Fozzard. She is still making videos and she's super cool. I'll link her channel down below. She is gay, not bi, but her vibe just resonated with me. And she talks about the broad topic of queer identity. And to be honest, I had kind of always wondered if maybe I wasn't actually bi because I'm not super butch or whatever. I guess I feel like I'm pretty average in the femininity department. I do like having longer hair and I enjoy painting my nails various colors. And Jessica is super girly and super gay, and she's like not shy about either of those. In her mind, the two can coexist. And she also made a video about Frida Kahlo, which I will link down below. I will end this video by saying that you are okay just the way you are. If you're queer but you're not ready to come out yet, that's okay. And maybe you're in a community where you've been taught that being anything other than cis or straight is wrong, but that's not true. Sometimes people hate and fear the things they don't understand, because the truth is we don't understand what causes differences in people's orientations and expressions. But you are not sick, and there's nothing wrong with you. It is okay to be anything. The only thing it's not okay to be is an asshole. Everything else is perfectly fine. All right. Thanks for watching. I'll be back soon. All right. Bye. If you enjoyed this video, please do me a huge favor and hit the thumbs up. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon. Like you try. Bye.